Well, I'm not sure what I'm able to bring. It's what all these very brave ladies tell me.
For many years, Clarence House has been a haven for most of the British royal family. However, as time continues to unfurl, deeper secrets are revealed behind a closed garage that belongs to the Queen Consort, Camilla. In a place where secrets and whispers cling like mud to a clean pair of heels, rumors have started emanating about what was really found in this closed garage. What exactly was the Queen Consort hiding? How defective will the contents of this closed garage be on her reputation? Join us as we uncover the secrets hiding inside Queen Camilla's garage, the royal seal of privacy. The British royal family has been accused time and again of keeping some of the biggest secrets and covering some of the biggest conspiracies in the world, with one of them including a secret garage deeply seated in the corners of Clarence House, hiding in plain sight yet remaining untouchable, especially with the Queen Consort Camilla reportedly guarding it with her life. Clarence House has always been home to King Charles and Princess Camilla. They moved into the royal residence in Westminster in 2003, when King Charles stopped giving a care in the world to the subtle criticisms coming his way over how he handled his marriage to the people's princess, Diana. Clarence House has always had the reputation of housing secrets that no one would dare to speak to the public. It was the perfect place for a secret family dinner for the British royalty, where they tried to settle their beef away from the outside world, and more. However, in recent times, insiders in Clarence House have consistently called out the possibility of the royal residence hiding something in the garage, but no one seems to know what exactly. Although the king has kept his nose clean according to insiders, the Queen Consort moves with more caution, always checking behind her shoulders every time she walks around Clarence House and moves towards the garage. While the aides in the residence have done their best to avoid the garage, insiders report that the situation changed when whispers serenaded one of the empty halls in the residence with a voice that sounded like the Queen's telling some mystery man something along the lines of, "The doors to the garage must never be opened without my say-so." Suddenly, she had inadvertently piqued the interest of insiders in the residence, who had always doubted her sincerity and claim to the crown, with some of them allegedly remaining loyal to the late princess. The curiosity grew stronger amongst insiders, who had watched even the king struggle to go into the garage if he ever walked past it, almost like he was afraid of being seen, or he just couldn't handle some of the truths that might hit him in the face if he dared to look. But what could be so important, lurking so deep in that garage and dying to come outside, and why is Queen Camilla so willing to protect it? Camilla's garage fetish. While the narrative surrounding most queens is their penchant to hide the good wine or the darkest chocolate, like Darren McGrady, former chef of the late Queen Elizabeth II, said about her having a sweet tooth and making sure to keep the last chocolate biscuit cake to herself for dessert, asking her personal chefs to bring theirs by train sometime. Camilla's obsession centered around a garage. Not very ladylike, is it? Camilla has always been known to be at the center of one controversy or another. Ergo, it wasn't too hard to see why she was not fazed, at least not from the start. It all felt routine to her. Just another storm she could wave by, and everyone would soon, once again, forget about it. Little did she know that her murmurs within the thin walls of the royal residence had piqued the interest of insiders who heard her plotting and scheming over a garage. However, aside from the garage, there was something else that weighed heavily on the minds of insiders in the residence. Naturally, a king and queen live in Buckingham Palace, where they rule from, plot, scheme, and basically play the Game of Thrones from there. But for some reason, the couple was back in Clarence House, living their day-to-day lives right from the hallowed halls of Clarence House. Although their reason was pretty valid, as Buckingham Palace was still under construction at the time, Camilla's insistence on protecting the garage at all costs made it difficult for most to believe that the renovation was their only reason. While the silent tensions continued to rise in the royal residence, toughening up so bad you could cut it with a knife, Queen Camilla has continued to stay, and it has now been widely reported that the pair will be living in the house until 2027, when the renovations are reportedly finished. To some, that was simply ample time to fix and possibly revamp Buckingham Palace, the real site of royalty. However, there are others who believe that she worked her way into influencing the required time frame to finish the revamp, so she could simply take care of something in that garage that has haunted her for what seems like forever. Following the quiet suspicions surrounding the life of the Queen Consort, there are brave men who have tried to discover what makes her so obsessed with this garage, keeping tabs on her movement and seeing what new ways she has devised to keep it away from the public. For some context, an insider revealed that a mailman was allowed into Clarence House with his car and then chose to park so close to the garage. According to the hidden witness, they claimed that they saw her flying into a fit of rage, mad at the security of the residence for carelessly watching the mailman get closer to the garage, claiming that he could have knocked it down, and telling him to leave and never return to Clarence House. According to the insiders, she decided to take new steps after this little debacle with the harmlessly parked car. But what kind of steps did she take? Queen Camilla's hide-and-seek. Insiders, who have gotten more than a view of the Queen Consort's reaction every time someone took a sneak peek at this garage of secrets, described her as smart, conniving, and masterful. She had suddenly started to feel like there were people around her, watching her every move, as her desire to guard this garage somehow escaped from her deep but sometimes poorly guarded thoughts. Following her suspicions, insiders claim that she began to make big architectural moves to keep her garage out of sight. But how was she planning to do that? If there is one thing clear about a building, it is its immovability. Land is immobile after all, but if they cannot be moved, they can definitely be hidden in plain sight, almost as if they don't exist, especially when it is a synecdoche of a bigger building. Insiders claim that she decided to strategize. Other than the gung-ho approach where she simply calls out every Tom, Dick, and Harry moving too close to her one-woman guarded garage, she decided to hide it in plain sight with the trompe-l'oeil, an elusive art that could make a painting look so surreal and nigh indistinguishable from reality. Since Camilla's goals, according to sources close to her, were always to distort the shape of reality and give it a new form that bends to her will, it was the perfect solution, a eureka moment for her. Insiders claim that she stealthily brought in painters from France who were specialists in the art of trompe-l'oeil, claiming that they needed to be there for a redesign while Buckingham Palace was going through its own renovation. Upon their arrival, insiders revealed that they caught a lot of attention in Clarence House, especially with their color palette, which included a mix of natural colors and some strange ones, designed for one purpose only: to create an illusion that no one could break out of, no matter how much they stared. Maybe some people control narratives. What the Queen Consort was planning was more than just controlling narratives. She was on the cusp of rebuilding reality via controlling every sense of perception that the human mind interprets into one of truth, lie, or conspiracy. While there are many who have claimed to know of the existence of this garage and could possibly point it out to others, as seeing is the first step to belief, she took the belief away using the trompe-l'oeil. Insiders claim that the Queen Consort specifically claimed that she was in the process of renovating a part of the residence. Hence, she wanted the whole of the south wing cleared, where she had the garage. In a couple of minutes, the south wing was cleared and the painters got to work, mystifying the garage doors with some of the best illusion art anyone could find anywhere. The garage had reportedly been repainted to rhyme with the walls and fences of the whole Clarence House estate, so it became very easy to miss. In fact, a source claimed that if anyone, without the blueprint of the residence, ever came in there was no way that they could tell the existence of this garage. Although she did it with a smile and put out a posture that reflected a bit of desire for Renaissance trompe-l'oeil painting, Insiders claimed that her satisfaction was well beyond that. They had been there too long to be unable to tell the difference between privacy and paranoia, leaving them to question why she would do it. But why go through all that trouble? Camilla's track record. Camilla was a rather simple woman who lived her life so far away from the noise of the British royal family. She was born to a middle-class family, where she was taught the art of equestrianism and also given the free will to simply be herself. Having always lived her life off the cuff, she was allowed to make her own decisions and do whatever she wanted, without the scrutiny of the whole world descending on her like a furious avalanche from the peak of a mountain. A reality that she now had to face since she became a part of the royal family. While no one really cares about why she found her way into the royal family, the citizens of Britain have a long-standing historical beef with her, stemming from the how she became Queen Consort. Camilla's go-getter syndrome comes from her background, as she was raised in a middle-class family, where she was taught the lessons of life, being handed to some while others needed to take it from those who already have it. Hence, when she tore King Charles's first marriage apart as the other woman in the picture, becoming the unnecessary third wheel that no one wanted but was there all the time, she faced serious backlash from the British demographic, who saw her as a usurper, forcing her way into a place she wasn't necessarily needed. However, there was more to the story, as she had been gathering more frenemies than friends in high places. For some context, Princess Diana wasn't the only woman that Camilla had robbed of a husband. Unfortunately, she was also married to Brigadier Andrew Parker Bowles, a man who was insanely in love with Princess Anne, the oldest daughter in the current British royal family setup, and also the Princess Royal of England. Although Princess Anne and Brigadier Andrew Parker Bowles were separated because of a difference that she couldn't have controlled, losing him completely as a lover was not an experience that she was looking forward to. The good old Brigadier was a staunch Catholic and was not ready to veer away from his religious belief to suit his partner at the time, Anne, who, like every other member of the British royal family, was born an Anglican. While they remained friends and he became a godfather to her kids, he was married to Camilla. In other words, Camilla had no credit in the bank, with some of the biggest personalities in the British royal setup, who had an intense love for Diana and remained loyal to Princess Anne. Camilla's ability to simply weave her way in and out of the reality she wants without any guilt attached to her heart has secured her a reputation that suggests that her intentions are barely ever what they seem, as she is a master at the dark arts of deception. With her track record, insiders in the royal residence couldn't seem to keep their eyes away from her sudden decision to repaint the garage. But how exactly do they untangle this web of illusion that she has craftily spun around the residence? The discovery that changed everything. While her plan to hide in plain sight had been strategically carried out, and she simply thought that she had gotten away with it, there was one more person whom she could not authoritatively deny access to the garage or whatever part of the residence that he wanted to go to: her husband, King Charles. Insiders believe that it gave her a little ick every time the king walked past the now inconspicuous garage. It was no secret that King Charles loved to walk at every chance he got. His time in the military and continuous movement around the world on a mission for the crown had somehow made that part of his life impossible to shake off. Exercising had become a part of his life. However, his constant movement around the residence was starting to set off Camilla's alarm, getting alerted to the trouble that might just find her should he decide to look into this old garage. However, insiders report that the king was not insistent on getting in the garage, as if it dug up old memories of the previous owner. That garage used to be occupied by his ex-wife, Princess Diana, who kept all of her valuable classics in there. Ergo, his decision to never go into the garage. But there was something else, something that got to him in ways that other things didn't. He noticed that the doors had been recently repainted and could tell how much care was put into making it look like a trompe-l'oeil. Insiders report that he was so fascinated because he could relate to the painting. especially because he was a bit of a painter himself who had his first ever work exhibited in Windsor Castle in the late 70s. His fascination drew him closer to the door, and he ran his old fingers through the painting, rubbing his palm against wonderful art and, inadvertently, Camilla's secret. Insiders claim that she was watching in silence, dying what happens now. Are her plans about to finally lose their footing? The garage doors flung wide open. Having discovered this new painting, and the fascination had him swooning over them, he saw something else that piqued his interest, but more importantly, opened up old memories that he had kept so deep down, stressed into his heart. It was the smell from the garage. A faint feel of Diana's favorite cologne was living there, and it was a chance to once again feel what it meant to be around her. He was already a scent away from the biggest nostalgic moment of his life, and inadvertently, something even more serious was lying in there, begging to be discovered. It smelled of love and reckoning coursing their way through his nostalgic mind. So he held on to the lock and heard the hinges of the wooden door creaking, as if waiting to be brought down, so it could reveal silent, tattered tales of carefully hidden secrets and narratives buried inside. Insiders claim that the Queen Consort quickly made her way down the stairs of the house after already calling out to her husband, telling him how much she would prefer that they take the walk around the compound together. However, good old King Charles had finally found a reason to stop walking. Now it was time to further his discovery, and the only goal on his mind was to get into that garage. First, he checked the locks, and strangely, it had its production date still visibly etched into it. 1996, it read. The year before, he lost Diana to the grave accident in Paris. It was more than just a lock to him. It was memorabilia that reminded him of a point in time when Diana was still alive and in use of this garage. That assertion, paired with the faint scent of her cologne, edged him closer to prying the doors open. However, before he could pry the door open, the Queen Consort, Camilla, had finally found her way downstairs and was now walking closer to the king. Although she was smiling from ear to ear while she walked as quickly as her legs could carry her to him, her eyes foretold a plot, a scheme to ensure that the door was never opened. However, King Charles was not having any of it. He was going to get in there regardless of the consequences from his wife, which he probably expected to be a stink eye or some jealousy-ridden words about him still longing after his deceased wife. Soon, he reaches out to some of the place aides, asking them to find the keys that grant them access into the garage. But for some reason, no one seemed able to find the keys. Camilla looked on as the frantic search began, but stayed in silence, watching everyone scamper after a solution that they might never find, with some insiders certain that she held the keys. Regardless of her ploy, the king asked that the door be brought down in the old reliable fashion, kicking it in. It didn't take long till the old hinges caved in, and the doors were flung wide open. What did they find behind these doors? Disturbing discoveries. Immediately, the doors were discovered and brought down. The Queen Consort's eyes were filled with disbelief. Somebody actually called her bluff and took down her precious walls of precarious secrets. Her eyes were stiff with dread, and they darted across the room like a cornered animal, contemplating her decisions: flight or fight. Insiders claim that she stood there frozen and came at the behest of the king, further into the garage. The 78-year-old's walk was slower than usual, almost dragging her feet, and the very reluctant steps she took sounded like a cautionary tale of her involvement in the conspiracies waiting to be discovered inside this garage. As expected, the garage was filled with the old pungent smell of history, nasally invasive and visually distorting. The faint smell of Diana's cologne, which led the king there in the first place, had finally gone away, overwhelmed by the invasive smell of old books and boxes covered in dust. On the right-hand side, there was a familiar automobile that was covered with a huge sheet. The dust was heavily clogged together, forming little balls of dirty memories that were hidden for timeless seasons by Diana, hoping to be found and used against oppressors. Upon entering the room, the king found memories of Diana hanging by more than a thread on the walls of the garage. When he walked further inside, he noticed a hollow sound on the floorboards, almost like there was some hidden compartment. Insiders claimed that he immediately called out to the aides around him, asking them to pull out and figure out the sound beneath the floorboards. Soon, there were men at work, hacking and racking the floorboards, hoping to dig out secrets that the garage had held since forever. It wasn't long before they dug out a metal box with the initials DS found on it, meaning Diana Spencer. Camilla, who watched the proceedings, had completely lost the twinkle in her eyes. Although finding the box was such a huge discovery, there was something about it that stood out like a sore thumb. It was a bee in the king's bonnet, and he needed an explanation so badly. The garage was definitely old, but the mini compartment in the floorboard was relatively new, almost like somebody created that hole to hide that box from the rest of the world. Could it be the same somebody who kept everyone away from the garage? Could it be the same somebody who camouflaged the garage in a trompe-l'oeil painting to distort perspectives and make the garage one with the estate? These were the silent questions that no one dared to ask, but were right there on curious lips that preferred not to get caught up in the politics-cum-conspiracy that was unfolding before their very eyes. But just how did they get the box to open? Diana's Pandora. Finally, the king's suspicions had been confirmed. There really was something lurking deeply in the garage begging to be found, and he seemed to have found it. Alas, it was Diana's secret box. While his suspicions are correct, and he had finally found answers to some of his questions, he was faced with a choice. He now had the box, but he wasn't certain if opening it was the right choice, or if he should simply let the sleeping dogs lie. Insiders claimed that he took his time to make a decision while Camilla watched him. According to sources close to her, she had tried to keep him out of the garage forever. But fate, which seemed to have other plans, had finally foiled hers, and the worst was about to happen. Riddled with doubt, amidst the bad decisions he had made many times in his life, King Charles decided to simply be himself, a daredevil. Already the king had a reputation of shooting first and asking questions later, doing whatever he wanted and dealing with the blowback however he could. For some context, he joined the army and asked to be placed at the forefront of the war, dying to serve in the front lines but was refused the honor due to protocol as the heir apparent to the British throne. Insiders claimed that he got the aides around the house to break this Pandora box, as he had somehow lost the fear to look inside. Insiders claimed that the box was designed to keep its secrets safe, as it had a 13-digit-long code on each side to crack it open. It was seriously old engineering. Ergo, it was difficult to get into it the conventional way without finding out the code or the maker. The question is, would the king pass up the opportunity to open the box now and wait until they find the maker? Sources in the residence claimed that he immediately sought out a more concrete option, which would involve a bit of drama, noise, and some chaos, but was sure to get the box open. So, he sought out men with sharpened tools and willing to have a go at the box upon his command. After a few cracks at the box, there was no doubt that it could be pried open. Before they dealt the final blow to pry it open, they took one more glance at Charles, who nodded in agreement, before the final blow was struck to open this mystery box, and their findings will send chills down your spine. The box was covered with dirt and wooden people from the floorboard over its cold, hard metal surface. Upon forcing it open, there were innumerable scrolls tied up in different colors of ribbons, which probably were connotations of the importance or goriness of each perfectly arranged letter. What could really be the content of these letters, and why was Camilla guarding them from ever coming into the light? The letter that changed everything. Immediately the box was opened, the king dove headfirst inside this massive ocean of letters, fishing for something that might have been hidden from him for a long time. These scrolls weren't just letters. Some of them were memoirs of some of the huge decisions that Princess Diana made and why she made them. According to insiders, the first few scrolls were written as an admiration for King Charles, detailing her feelings for him right from the moment they met and how much guilt she felt for taking him away from her sister Sarah. Sources claim that he let out a smile and shed a proverbial tear from one of his eyes, detailing how deeply hurt he was finding this out now. However, there were more scrolls, and this time he picked the one tied in a red ribbon, where he found the most shocking detail about her life and possibly her death. These letters pointed fingers directly at one woman, Camilla. The details of the letter were very specific, almost carefully worded, like she knew that they would be found and knew who would find them. She described the real reason for her anxiety in the crowd, which rendered her speechless for quite a while. While there were rumors of her silence being a result of anger or pride affecting her so badly that she needed a voice coach or therapist to get her mind back in sync with her speech organs, her letter detailed the real reason behind her mental switch-off. She was traumatized by King Charles' sudden decision to neglect her just a few months after their marriage for Camilla, whom he used to date. In the box, there were several tape recordings and tapped phone calls that detailed long conversations between King Charles, who claimed that he would love to live in Camilla's pants, showing just how crazy he was about her and how little attention Diana got from him. He was sickened by the letters and hearing his own voice from a recorded tapped phone call where he was admittedly cheating on his wife and loving every bit of it. It was a moment of shame for him and Camilla. While Charles was fired up at every minute when he read the scrolls and heard the tapes, Camilla looked at her toes so vividly, almost like there was something else that she was hiding, and would prefer that the king never saw it. Charlize, suspicious, opened up the dusty sheets on the old car and found pieces of Diana's belongings that were considered lost in the car wreck in Paris that took her life. What could this mean for the reputation of the royal family if news of this ever got out? A potential implosion. Princess Diana's demise on August 31, 1997, rocked the United Kingdom like no one thought was possible. Although she had already been divorced from the then Prince Charles at the time, she was still so important to the royal family. She had such a rare profile at the time, mixing elegance with royalty, fashion, youth, and beauty together, culminating in the most impressionable character in the royal stub, and her name remains relevant even now. Diana had a completely different approach to ruling, as she fancied this close-to-home style of rulership, getting herself acquainted with the people. Hence, she was just as important to the crown as she was to the people. Ergo, the impact of her death was spread further than the British throne. Hence, finding scraps from her car crash in Paris in a locked garage at Clarence House was an explosion waiting to happen. According to insiders, the king decided against letting out the things that were found in the garage to avoid the blowback that might come from it. However, the rumors of this possible finding don't seem to go away, and the United Kingdom is slowly building up an uproar that might go up in decibels if news comes out. However, the real question that remains unanswered is, who brought these belongings there? While insiders make guesses about Camilla because of her continuous and deliberate desire to keep the garage away from anyone who tries to get in, there have been no obvious claims from Camilla that she did it. In fact, insiders claim that she denied any knowledge of these items and pointed to her old equestrian belts and some of her pictures as a child as the all-important things that she carefully guarded so closely in the garage. However, owing to the rumors pervading the British media, old news from March 2023 about Diana's letters to Paul Burrell, detailing her demise as a plan from the deeply lodged deep state in the royal setup, going all the way up to King Charles, started to resurface. In 2023, Paul Burrell made claims that Princess Diana was more of a monarchist than people gave her credit for. Her social life seemed to take all the attention from her true self. Hence, she wrote letters to him, detailing how she really feels. However, aside from her thoughts on the monarchy, she reportedly described King Charles as not only unfit to rule, but also very willing to resort to homicide if he does not get his way when he wants it. The letters, which were written by Diana, according to Paul, contained a message that she was going to be killed in what would seem like a car crash with the brakes cut and made to seem like an accident, so she needed to die before Charles was in the clear to marry another woman who will be queen next to him. Although there are conflicting reports on what news is true, and the contents of Camilla's garage, according to insiders, are being kept under wraps, only time will tell the real intentions of Camilla and its effects on the reputation of the royal family. Do you think Queen Camilla was a part of the supposed conspiracy that ended the life of the people's princess? Is there a chance that King Charles reacts publicly to Camilla's decision to hide these things from him? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.